Mr. Martin DelRio. He is the CEO of the Armed Forces Services Initiative in Washington, D.C. He is in D.C. quite often, so he knows what's going down at any time. And so we want to make sure that you hear what he has to say, and you can also ask him questions. He's always happy to answer those. Once Martin is done, I will be back up here with a couple extra things to tell you about some events coming up. But without further ado, come on up here, Martin.
It's on fire right now. You walk into any coffee shop and someone's on their phone with their parents talking about how they just lost their job. And I want to give you some insight into that, a little context for it before I go into my question here, because we do, you okay? We do have quite a bit to cover, but for those who haven't heard about AFC, that's okay. We actually just started out in November. We were going to take our time, wait for our 501c3 approval, and then realized with Trump getting in office, we had to step on the accelerator. So we were actually found a bunch of private donors to let us hit the ground running right away while that approval went through. And we put a really hefty team together. And a lot of it was because we knew it was going to go fast. And I say that in the terms of the domino effect. We knew the dominoes were going to start falling quickly, but we just did not realize how fast they were going to jeopardize people's lives. What oftentimes people forget is when they see someone in uniform, they forget there's an entire support system of a family and children behind that uniform. Whether it's male, female, member of LGBTQIA, doesn't matter. There is a whole support system there that is also being PCS and going through this deployment as well that also has to make sacrifices. So when you take something away from a veteran, you take something away from a service member that's transitioning out of the military and will now be a veteran, you're traumatizing that whole family's livelihood, not just the livelihood, but what the children are now seeing as their reality, right? Because especially when you're young, this is all you know. This is your world. You're 3-4 years old. And if all you know is chaos, it doesn't do a whole lot for your upbringing, at least in those formative years. So with AFC, what we do is we say, let's focus on the 3 programs, the 3 angles that we can impact the most. We said, well, veteran homelessness, obviously. We want to get in front of it rather than just be reactive to it. So we created something called AFC Empower, which helps a lot of service members going through the military process. For anyone who's served, can I get a raise of hands? Who served? Oh, that's awesome. That's family right there. There you go. And they're in front. See, they learn. What we've done is with AFC Empower, we work with a lot of the TAP centers and the transition coordinators at the military installations. But we took it a step further. Those TAP centers usually help you find a job and help you when you get out, so you land on your feet, theoretically. It never really works out according to plan, but we work with them to try to perfect it a little better. The other thing that we do is we take it a step further and we reach out to National Guard units and Army Reserve units who don't have access to those resources. And we say, that's great, you don't have to go to a military installation, call us. We have a team that used to be TAP Center resource managers and now they work with us. So it's easier when you have people who know how to do the job and you don't have to pay to train them, so it's great when you're on a budget. But the reality is we're getting that institutional knowledge and we're being able to help people on a level that most times a lot of civilians don't see. They don't see a National Guardsman because they're not in the uniform all the time, right? Once they take the uniform off, they're back at their 9-to-5 daily work. We still have to help them because they may have injuries when they deployed. People forget that during the Global War on Terror, about 40% of that was National Guard soldiers in the early years fighting the war, and that number increased towards the end. A lot of reservists and National Guardsmen were deployed with the active duty, but they don't qualify for the same benefits of active duty. So we try to bridge those gaps. A lot of what we try to do with our efforts is bridge the gaps to try to make it a little more seamless, just to help people not fall through the cracks here. So that's AFC Empower with employment and education, or with employment. Now on the education side, maybe you're younger, you got medically discharged, you have a whole life ahead of you, but you're missing a leg, or the military says, hey, you have an injury where you can't stay. Too easy. We'll figure out something for you. If you want to go back to school, that's great. We'll partner with them. We'll partner with whatever school you want to go with to get you a scenario where we can work with organizations like Sophia.org. If anyone's familiar with Sophia.org, they will allow you on your own terms to take the first 2 years of gen eds at your own pace, and you're not paying anything for it. That's through our program. when you partner with us, you essentially, even though you have BAH, you're not using any of that for the first 2 years. And then when you're ready to transfer those credits and go to the university, they'll transfer those credits free of charge as well. So we offer that just to help streamline these service members get through, because you learn so much in the military. When I went to school, I finished my bachelor's after my deployments, and I realized I know a lot of this stuff already, and I learned it from just people I hung out with in my unit, people that I lived with for the last 10 years. And I realized, why am I sitting in this class? I can easily test out of something. So we provide that scenario. Here's an opportunity for you to test out of what you know or what you think you know. You get 3 tries. If not, you gotta sit your butt down and sit through the semester. Sorry, can't do nothing for you there. But they give you a fair shot at it, and they still won't charge you. When you want to use your BAH and your post 9/11 GI Bill or any other chapter of the GI Bill, then you can use that for the latter years of your college career. So we do that in a means to really preserve your resources. So if you're only gonna go for an undergrad degree and you want to use those 2 years, that's great. You can pass on the remaining to your children or to your spouse. It's just a way to spread it out so the whole family gets a little bit more of a generational benefit from it, rather than just the service member themselves. The final program that we had is called Warrior Compass. This is the one that actually really sparked everything for us to move forward. Warrior Compass is an AI-generated program. Who's familiar with ChatGPT? Everybody's heard of it, right? Has anybody used ChatGPT? Don't say for homework or anything, or for work or emails, that'd be bad. He kept his hand up. So what we've done is we created our own large language model, similar to ChatGPT. However, it's disconnected from the internet, and it houses 30,000 plus resources that myself and my team have built over the last 12 years of doing this kind of work. They're vetted every year. They're free of charge to service members and veterans and their families. The reason we bank them is because they're so powerful. You might have an organization that can help you with one thing, but within their organization, working together, they may be able to help someone else do something else. So we banked them because it created a larger web of networks for us that we knew are very capable of working with service members in the most intricate scenarios. And I'll say this, just yesterday this happened. We had a service member who, a tree fell on his house. His car was repoed the night before, and the tree fell on his house in the storm. His car was repoed the next day, talk about bad luck. And his wife, the week prior, had left him and left a note saying she's taking the kids. And he's locked out of his bank accounts. So what does he do? He calls us. I'm thinking, oh my God, I don't even know where to start. With Warrior Compass, what we do is we have our case managers that will log in on the account and type in your scenario, and what it will do is prioritize. It pretty much triages your scenario and says, based on the time, based on the seriousness of it, focus on this, provide you the contact information of who to contact within what organization, email and phone. It will also provide you documents if you need to fill out any paperwork. We'll provide you that as well. And the goal is to get you on a path to independence, or at least a solution within 7 days. Now that's just a game plan. You have all of this within 7 seconds. It pushes it all out for you. So you know what you're doing as soon as you hit enter. Give it 7 seconds, it'll populate. What we do is we automatically assign you a case manager that's gonna help walk you through those benchmarks. And the goal is within 7 days, get you in the trajectory or get you to the solution, so that we at least have a path to independence. We remove the chaos, remove the panic and the fear, because when those kind of things happen, and you're dealing with issues with PTSD, TBI, you have issues where you're not even sure you've had a concussion, but you have the effects of it, just haven't been diagnosed, right? We've all waited years to get diagnosed with something. I waited 9 years before I went to a doctor. You're dealing with those symptoms, it just adds to the mess. What we don't want is some kind of inclination for suicide. We want to get you somewhere where you don't feel like this is already the end and you got to check out. Thank you. I wish I could take credit for all of it, but I'm too dumb. So I had a friend in the military who he hacked the FBI when he was 15. And then they hired him to teach him how he did it. When you go into his living room, he has it framed, the newspaper clipping is framed. It's from the Hammond Times. He lives here in Highland too. Well, here in Highland, but we met each other in the military, found out we were from the same area. And I said, man, somehow we're gonna end up working together because you're funny and you're smart. And I just want to put your brain to the test. And I proposed the idea, and he, in 3 months, had it built up in his living room. The hard part was figuring out where we were going to put it, because that thing is massive. So a lot of fans cooling it off, but it works. It's been working great. We brought it down offline this weekend because we realized, again, with everything changing so quickly in DC and with the tariffs and just the VA cuts that are coming in August, everyone's in panic. And we're gonna cover a lot of this as well. But we had to take it offline to give it a little bit more power and a little bit more juice because it crashed with all the requests coming out of the Midwest, and Midwest Florida and California pretty much crashed it overnight. So it's effective. At least it's a good problem to have. At least they're going to the site and they're getting the resources that they need. But it'll be back up on Monday. It's something I'm really proud of. AFC's really doing a lot of great work on a shoestring budget with a really great team. Something I think is important to mention is that everyone on the AFC team is either a spouse of a military service member or a veteran themselves. They all have skin in the game. They've all been there. I myself was a homeless veteran coming out of Iraq. So everyone's seen what it's like in that transition to understand where those pit holes are and where those gaps are to plug. So it's easier when you have someone that's been in the hole with you, helping you figure out the way out of it. So that's AFC in a nutshell. I could talk about it all day. I'm super proud of it. But
You should be.
thank you. Tell my wife that. She gets mad with the time I spend on it. In all seriousness, these last 3 months have felt like a year, has it not?
Oh, yeah.
It's been a freaking drag. I mean, let's just be honest. It's been painful. But the reality is this, it's gonna get worse.
Anyway, your friend could hack into Trump or Elon?
Oh, that conversation has happened. I shouldn't say it on the microphone. You're like, you know what else can we do from another country, per se? No, so glad you said that.
Do it from a place where the Penguins have tariffs on them.
Yeah, listen,
Get it sent from there.
I will try my best. Give me a winter coat, I'll do it. We've been trying to keep up so much in these last 3 months. I'll be honest, in January alone, I think it was January 21st, we realized we need to hire people just to track all the crap coming out. Forgive me, I'm very informal, I'm prior service infantry, so I try to clean my language, but sometimes an F-bomb will slip out. Bear with me. There's no kids here, are there? Oh, okay, I gotta try real hard now. Oh, Lord. No. But seriously, we realized we have to hire a team just to keep up. There was so much coming out. Your phone lights up so much. By the time you read one notification, there's another one coming through. And it sounds so stupid, you're like, that can't be real. There's no way this is real. And then you realize it's very real. This is our president doing this. It sounds like a fever dream. I feel like if this were a movie, I'm like, this is great. This is what the hell? That's a hell of a nightmare. But it's reality and we're living it. And I say it's gonna get worse because it is. We focus on a lot of veterans issues because that's kind of the end result once you get out of the military. But there's two sides of the house. We're trying to catch everyone before they separate. Those last 30, 60, 90 days of that transition, we're trying to scoop you up to give you a seamless transition, give you a softer landing, and make sure you at least have a game plan. So when you hang up that uniform on Friday, on Monday, you know where you're going for work. You at least have an idea. If you have terminal leave, you know you got 2 weeks off, and then you put on a suit and you're going to this facility, right? Where you're doing this kind of work. That's the game plan. We're realizing now that it's getting harder and harder to do that because when we look on the DoD side, just the night before last, they did the second round of RIFs, right? The reduction in force emails. And it went to all of the DoD, civilian, GS, federal employees. Now, these idiots, and I'll say that, these idiots in DC are not aware of the inner workings of things. They're looking at a paper essentially and saying, okay, that's a number we can say, let's exit out. But they don't know what the inner workings are of it. And when you're getting rid of federal civilians at the DoD, for instance, in my region, National Capital Region, we have Walter Reed, we have Fort Belvoir, Fort Meade, Fort McNair. We have a lot of the installations. We also have Arlington National Cemetery. Those are all military service members that are running the show there. So when you say, I'm gonna fire those DoD civilians, what you're saying is, damn near the majority of the staff at Walter Reed that helps these wounded warriors is gone. A lot of people don't know is the military itself doesn't actually handle those roles. They've been short-staffed. We all have heard of the recruiting issues they've had over the years. Do you think they have enough people to help with that? No, not at all. That's why there's been civilians working with them. They're force multipliers. They have until April 7th to decide if they're gonna resign or just stick around and get fired. Essentially, they will be removed at some point. That was the reduction in force email that went out. There are, in just Fort Belvoir alone, at any given moment, over 300 service members that are wounded. 20% are severely wounded. About another 70% are those that are going to be medically transitioned out, which means they're not coming back. Their injury is so severe, they can still survive, but they're going to take a lot more time. They need a lot more support on that separation. So who's there to support them? Who's there to help them? It can't be me. We're not on the federal side. I have to catch them on the back end when they come out. So that means by the time they come out and they get kicked to the curb, because that's essentially what's happening. They're going to get kicked to the curb. We have to try to play a catch-up patch game and figure that out. Before this RIF came through, as it was, we were working with the transition coordinators to have a visual and say, okay, this is what they're doing. We're going to pick up from here. And we already were prepared when they came through, okay? We don't have that anymore. Once they're gone, we just have to wait for them to show up at the doorstep and figure it out from there. It's a nightmarish of a problem, but we're not going to give up. I mean, there's no answer to that. We're not going to quit. But it does make things harder. And when you're willing to kick service members who are wounded to the curb, you're willing to do a whole lot more to veterans. During elections, they like to tout us around like a pony show. Rah, rah, veterans, all that jazz, right? Thank you. We're on the same page. But the reality is, when the time comes to really put the feet to the ground, not much happens. Now, we have some really great politicians in this region. You know, Congressman Van, I've worked with him for a long time, back before he was a congressman, and has always been stand up. During the PACT Act, I was running around DC while he was running in the hallways, trying to mangle up last minute meetings. I remember watching him walk out at like 2 a.m. from those meetings that day. And I remember thinking, man, I'd buy him a sandwich, but everything closed at 7 o'clock. You know, I'll eat mine. But you have some good representatives, but it takes a whole lot more. It takes a whole lot of you guys reaching out. I know I'm preaching to the choir because you guys always show up. Kim and I are always talking. I follow everything on Facebook as well. I always see everything you guys are doing. You guys are always showing up. Indivisible is one of those organizations that you just can't go without. Anytime Kim says she needs me or needs me to speak, count me in, I'm there. That's how important it is, especially now. And I know it's veteran specific, but just all the causes across the board. Now, a lot of these scenarios that we're gonna cover today, yes, they affect veterans, but they also affect your family members because they're gonna go through with the veterans that you know as well, and yourself as veterans. So I'm gonna dive into it. And again, being very informal, if you have a question, you don't have to wait till the end, that takes forever. Just stop me in the middle. Yes, ma'am.
Why does the veterans go towards the Republican Party?
You know what? It's funny. There's a book on that, and I wish I could remember the name. So she said, why do veterans lean Republican when it comes voting? I'm not an expert, but oftentimes what I've seen is, I hate to sound it like insulting, but there's been studies on it, so I'll just repeat what the studies had showed. Many of the veterans who are leaning Republican often tend to be lower enlisted, who have gone in because not because they're dumb, but they're coming from places that really haven't experienced the kind of travel, the world, or the culture, the diversity, to really have that access to that. On top of that, there is an education issue as well. More officers who required a degree to be an officer most of the times. You've traveled, you've learned, you've gotten that critical thinking, you've seen the world through a different lens. And it's nothing bad against lower enlisted. I was lower enlisted. But even then, when I was lower enlisted, when I got in, I was very, very leaning Republican because I hadn't seen much outside of East Chicago. And then the first unit I went to was in Martinsville, Indiana. Now you try to be a Mexican in Martinsville, Indiana in 2008. It was a little scary. But I really quickly realized, oh, I'm the darkest person here? What's going on? No one ever treated me differently in my unit. It was the town itself that was rough. But I realized, okay, there's a little more to this. And I started looking at how other officers are treated. And then when I went back to IU, I realized a lot of the officers that I had met had degrees. I said, man, there's something there. in studying it and in reading, I wish I could remember the name of the book, but there was a lot of studies put into understanding that break in the education as well as the way your culture
You
from
only
having
know
that
what you
background.
know.
You only know what you know, and sometimes you just can't help that, right? So how do we diagnose that, or how do we fix that? It's exposure. With anything, it would always be exposure. Myself, when I went back to IU, finished my degree, I got to travel around quite a bit. I realized, oh wow, there's way more to this. When I deployed to Iraq, I realized, no, I'm a kid from the ghetto. Go to Iraq, I lived in a palace compared to the ghetto that they had. It was rough. It puts things in different contexts. So a lot of lower enlisted tend to lean that way. You get a lot more officers that will go. Now that's not always 100%, but that tends to be the theme. Am I an expert? No, I've just read on it a bit. So yes, if you do have any questions, don't hesitate, stop me. I actually prefer it. It makes things a little more dynamic, a lot more fun. But the first thing I want to talk about is, ta-da, the 83,000+ employees that are going to be cut from the VA. Why is that number one? Because it sucks the most.
How many?
83,000, just over. So I say this because we think 83,000 it's such an unfathomable number when you're thinking about a body count in one agency, but that's nationwide. A lot of these employees, they're not stuffed in buildings. Sometimes they're remote. Sometimes they're remote to do home visits. Service members can't always make it into the VAs or into the C-box, so you'll have the home visits come through. They do great work. I've worked in the VA for a long time before taking on roles at Operation Warfighter and Pentagon, and it was always it was just so humbling to see people willing to just, nobody's overpaid in the VA. So I don't understand where budget cuts come from, slashing the most underpaid people with PhDs. Like, my God. It was humbling to see, wow, these people really put in their work. They show in at 5, 6 in the morning to do their work, and they're happy about it. And I don't know, I just didn't think I'd be that happy at 5, 6 in the morning. But when you see the response from these veterans, and we all know it, we don't take things seriously. We're gonna joke about our own injuries half the time. When they told me I had a concussion, I thought, oh great, my wife's got another reason to call me stupid. So you're gonna find the silver line to laugh about it, because why have a pity party? But it made it feel more comfortable to realize, wow, these people don't even take their injuries, not that they don't take it serious, they don't let it run their lives. And it was refreshing for me, and I thought, this feels like home. I'm gonna stay here doing this for a while. And then I never left. I've been working with veterans ever since then. But they're getting cut because they're being looked at as a number, noodles being thrown at the wall. Now, how does that affect us? As veterans, even service members coming out, for a lot of us back in the day, when you left the military, all of your records never transferred over to your VA once you became a civilian. You were fighting the VA and DOD left and right to get copies and drag it just so you can get your benefits, your compensation. And it would take years to get your compensation. It took me 9 years to get my compensation.
Jeez.
Yeah, no, it's depressing. It was, when you're already hurting for money, it's worse when you know your money's somewhere but they won't give it to you yet. It's another level of frustration.
Delayed, denied, deceased.
Exactly. There are many service members that died just waiting for the paycheck. Many go homeless because they hadn't received it yet. It's drastically frustrating. I don't like to, when I speak on behalf of ASA, I don't like to reach into politics much, but the reality is a lot of the progress that veterans have benefited from, those programs that were created, were done on the Democratic side. Not many came from the Republican side. And go ahead and look at that, because that was a number that really baffled me. I always thought it was the other way around. There's been more Democratic representatives and presidents that did more for veterans and military service members and military families. But going back to with the VA, these budget cuts are going to cause drastic pain points for us. What we're looking at in just those cuts alone is obviously longer wait times. We're obviously looking at more compromised benefits, more compromised service, because they're just not gonna have the people that are there. The goal for them in doing this is, I'm sure you've heard, they wanna go back to the 2019 staffing that they had. That sounds good in theory until you look at just what happened in 2019. Heinz VA had a backlog of corpses in their morgue that were so rotted that they were just blown all over the floor. It's disgusting. That happened several times because they didn't have enough staff to track down the next of kin. And if you don't have a family member, they also didn't have enough staff to do the burial. At that point, you would normally contact either your National Guard unit or your whatever next units in your local area for burial. They didn't even have enough people to do that. And that's not the VA's fault. They were trying, but they weren't given any funding or any mandate to move forward. And I used to blame, I was one of those guys that were like, the VA sucks. And then I realized, no, they're trying, but nobody was listening. And what's frustrating the most is that nobody was listening, even though we were in the midst of 2 wars. That's the worst time to ignore the VA. That's the institution that takes care of everyone once they get out. Maybe lend them an ear. Take some time for them. So it did frustrate me when I thought, okay, they want to go back to the 2019 numbers, but we had such a backlog of benefits. The pending cases, I think, were over 1 million plus. And then we had the issues with the morgues, but it's also the year where we had, I think it was 4 different embezzlement issues with fraud. So if you want to do something like Doge, take that back to 2000. We could have used that in 2019, not now. So you want to take it back to where everything was well now, so why cut it? Again, it's just a bottom line number for them. So they want to take it back to those numbers thinking that it's a good thing. It's not. Those examples I gave you were just in Illinois. There's 49 other states where there was issues with the VA in 2019. I was literally going to print it out and show you guys, but I realized I'm going to use all my printer ink just printing these articles and links. So you know what? Let's on top of that, with the 2019 figures, with that being just the state of Illinois, nobody was listening. We had other states who were reaching out to nonprofit. The CBOCs were reaching out to nonprofits on the side, kind of on the low, just to get these service members the help they needed. Because back then you couldn't go out of network, the VA wouldn't cover it. So they said, okay, where can we send you quietly, discreetly, where no one's gonna know, no one gets fired, and make sure you actually get the care you need? Why?
Yeah.
That's what we're facing again.
Privatization of the VA.
Bingo. And that's where we're going next.
And it's profit goes for someone, but not us.
We don't wish it was the other way around,
Yeah.
right? So with those proposed cuts going, yes, go ahead, sir.
What you're describing reminds me of what Putin's army is going through now. That people are thrown back into the fight, wounded, on crutches.
Mhm.
It's disgusting.
Yep.
That's not the United States.
Couldn't have said it better myself. Said this is what Putin's doing to his people, throwing them back in on crutches to fight the war. You know what's funny about Russia and the United States? We'll send our soldiers back too. If they get an amputated leg, we'll send them back. But we ask them, do you want to? I've got a friend in Special Forces. He's missing his leg. He got his left leg blown off, calls it rubber ducky. Gets a nice prosthetic leg and says, okay, if I can still do physical fitness, I want to get back in. They said, all right. They've already spent all this money for you to be Special Forces. If you can function with a fake leg, they'll take you. You know, you got to get your ROI out of it.
Yeah.
He's still there. He was still fighting until they pulled out of Afghanistan with one leg. Then volunteers to say, let me go back and help get the interpreters out. I mean, this guy's got one leg. But you have people in Russia who are defecting to Ukrainians saying, haven't eaten in weeks, haven't gotten paid. They told me this was a training mission. I didn't know we were in war. Can you imagine? You wake up, I'm just gonna go train today, just gonna do some PT. Oh wait, this is a real bullet that hit me? That's a hell of a wake-up call. Nobody wants that. But you're right, we give them the option, we don't force them to do it. It's always been a volunteer force here. Vietnam's another story, it's a little more chaos then. But everyone that fought in the last 2 wars has volunteered for it. Why can't we just give them the appreciation they deserve? They didn't ask for anything in return. Okay, go to college, so what? You want to get the VA home loan, so what? Why shouldn't he have access to a house, right? You're not getting it for free, you still have to pay the mortgage. You're just asking for a better entry point to a lifestyle. But in return, you're dedicating your entire life. That blank check is going to the United States in defense of liberty or whatever this president decides to do with them. So I don't mean to make light of it, but the reality is that we don't force our people into it. So why are we treating them like they're test subjects, as if they don't matter at all? That's what frustrates me the most. You know, I see you guys here with your hat. And I'm sitting there thinking, am I gonna have that pride after all of this? I want to, there's a part of me that still gets teary-eyed at the national anthem. I love it. I was standing right there when Kim was talking, I'm looking at everybody in the front row thinking, hell yeah, that's how I wanna be. And I keep thinking, am I gonna be like that after these 3 years? And then what's that gonna look like? We don't know. I like your West Point hat though. These proposed cuts, they're gonna be drastic. Are they gonna be fun? No, we know they're not. There's not much we can do about it either. The major thing we can do, which I know it doesn't feel like much because it's not tangible in the moment, but like Kim said, really bashing your senators, really calling them out. Get in their ass. Really, really get, because the reality is if you don't make them uncomfortable, nothing's going to change. And if nothing changes, nothing changes. It's more of the same. We saw Cory Booker. Wow. 25 hours, let's hear it. I fall asleep after 2 hours. 25 hours, and then to hear the prep he did going into it was, okay, that's more than 25 hours. You delivered. That's the spark. I had this conversation the other day. That's the spark. Someone's willing to do something very uncomfortable. I know someone's gonna play it down and say, oh, he just stood up and talked for 25 hours about nothing. Yeah, you stand up and talk for 25 hours about nothing. He had some really hard-hitting points. He had a theme to it. He read letters from families, from real people that makes a difference. There are a lot of opportunities for us to jump in. And all those events that Kim was mentioning, jump in. That's the best we can do. And right now, a lot of people get used to veterans not saying a lot because we keep it quiet. We don't really jump in. We don't want to stir the pot unless we need to. But let's be honest, when they come for our benefits, it's when we get pretty rowdy. Can you imagine turning up to an event, on a campaign event, and 100 veterans show up just booing you? Ugh, doesn't look good in the press. They can't. How do you walk your way out of that one?
Especially when you're a veteran.
When you're a veteran yourself, it's embarrassing at that point. When you're a veteran, you turn. I had this conversation with Todd Young, and he did his little spiel showing up in his BDU jacket. I was like, "You're lame." And he got mad because I called him lame. I said, "That was embarrassing. Like, you sold out your people and you want to wear the jacket? Get the hell out of here." Like, pardon my French, but you get the gist. I don't make friends in DC. That's fine. I also don't go there to make friends. We go there to stir the pot and have seed, and a lot of that just requires pissing off the people that need to be. You have to make them uncomfortable. Okay, that's the reality of this. So I say that because, again, one of the best things that we can do is contact your representatives. Blow up Mervan's phone. Even though he's doing everything he can, still let him know you're not losing steam. Yes, ma'am. I didn't hear the last part.
I said, Ace is young. I don't feel like calling them because I don't feel like they're listening.
They'll text you back and say, we'll get back to you, and then they never do.
They're town hall meetings, don't show up, right?
You made a really good point. She said she doesn't feel like calling them because what's it gonna do? They don't answer. You get the shrug, right?
Yeah.
The reality is, you still stir it. Because and I'm glad you said that because I was gonna mention this at the end, but I'm going all over the place, so just bear with me, all right? We have staffers that are willingly leaving Republican representatives right now. Because it's just, and Jim Banks has a few that are leaving as well. One's volunteering on our staff now. He's got a primary opponent.
And he actually just passed a bipartisan bill.
See? Primary opponent, he just passed a bipartisan bill.
With almost, there was like 44 people that were they were putting a stop to Russia, putting additional sanctions on them.
Mhm.
And it was half Democrats and half Republicans, and Young sponsored it, which I was surprised by, which I'm glad.
You see, and that's the thing. You stir the pot. You make it uncomfortable for
He's got
them.
somebody priming them that's a MAGA.
Exactly. That's why I say this. Yes, it feels like you're not doing anything in that moment, but believe me, people are watching. These young staffers that are there are thinking, oh, how do I explain this to my mom? How do I explain this to my dad, that this is what I stand for? Yes, ma'am.
When I call the congressman, I always make sure that I say to the staffers, well, I hope you have a job. Once we come after him, I don't know where you're gonna go.
And you know what? And that, that hits home because everyone knows,
I'm sorry, I hope you still have a job when we're done.
yeah, your guy's making things expensive. Good luck with eggs.
We're not letting you stick around, so you better pick another party.
Exactly. Yes, ma'am.
Other, colleagues, like, former military, former veteran, or veterans that are in Congress or representatives, no matter if they are from our state or not.
Yes, I do that. So, for instance, you'll find a lot of Republican representatives in other states as well. They'll give you the respect that you deserve. To my surprise, when I first started calling Senator Young, gave me the time of the day, didn't rush me off the phone, and we've had several conversations. And even though we disagree on quite a lot, I still get the same due respect from him. And that's one thing that's, at the end of the day, at least you can give me that respect. But you also know I'm gonna call you back. And the more people are gonna keep calling as well. Just like you said, you stir the pot, you make them uncomfortable. Other people are watching, and if they have their own colleagues breathing down their neck as well, it makes a big difference. Nobody wants to be the bad guy with all the eyes on them. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, when you call your senator, there, this one, I called James the first time. It stated that what you leave on the voicemail is recorded and transcribed and part of the federal record. So even if you don't talk to somebody, your words still count.
Yep, that's very true. Your words are transcribed and on the record. Yes, Kim.
Yeah, I just want to say something. It's still important to call them. There's many reasons why, like what Martin said. But another reason is, if they don't hear from you, when they go into a vote, they can say, I didn't hear from you.
Exactly.
I didn't hear from them. Don't ever let them be able to say that.
Exactly. Contact the Senate Arms Committee, the Veterans Committees. Oh, blow their emails up. Yes, sir.
I was gonna say, if you do contact any of your representatives, find out what committees they're part of.
Yep.
Because if you do, blow up their phone, deadlines and everything else, because at the end of the day, they want to hear the message that the constituents are listening to and are aware of. And if they didn't hear from their own representatives, the individuals within that committee, they heard from you. And they're gonna hear from you, whether your representative says so or not.
Bingo. Also, I'm gonna give you guys a little secret. Senate Armed Services Committee, if you guys email Tammy Duckworth, you're gonna get an email saying, no, you're not in her district. She yells at them. Like it still gets read. And I worked with her several times. She will still take it to them because I've got it. I sent an email during the first reduction in force emails when they fired all the probationary service members. We had a ton of veterans that lost their jobs. Sent an email on behalf of AFC, and I got that ugly, non-responsive, computer-generated, you're not in my district, whatever, right? Get a phone call, hey, I read your email, and yeah, I'm talking to him right now. I'm like, yell at him, put him on the damn phone, right? But it works because it's still being seen, and that also goes into the record. Those emails get looked at as well. Don't think that just because you're getting the shrug that no one's paying attention. People are still watching. They do that so that you lose faith. Don't. We've got the momentum right now. Yes, ma'am.
Our Senator Jim Banks is on the Senate Arms Committee.
Exactly. I got one of those shrugged emails from him. He's the one that Senator Duckworth was yelling at.
Calling Senator Duckworth's office, the staff is always receptive, and I always say, listen, I live literally 2 miles from the border of Illinois. She doesn't represent me, but maybe she can talk to the fools in my state.
Yeah. I can't agree more. If you need an attractive subject line, just put it in all caps, help. Who's not gonna open that, right? Yes, ma'am.
I think the app called 5 Calls is very helpful. That's what I use when I call the senators and representatives.
Call 5 calls.
And what I do is I put my phone on speakerphone, So they can hear me and then I can read, because you know, it's full, and they update it every day. So
That's
5
fantastic.
calls.
5 calls app. I'm gonna
Yeah.
download that today. Yes,
Everybody
sir.
uses it up here.
I was just gonna say one thing, that it's really important to make calls often, because there is somebody in every congressman's office who adds up the numbers on a daily basis.
Mhm.
It's like a weather report. It's all about a numbers game. So the higher the numbers are about a particular issue, the more that moves up on that particular representative's agenda. It doesn't matter, especially the ones who are spineless, because they're really concerned about the things so that they can do what they think will get them elected again.
They can
So the
sway.
more noise you make, the higher the numbers are, the more likely it is that something's gonna happen. Apparently, emails are like wallpaper, they don't get read, but calls are daily counted. So
See-
give them a good weather report every day.
Every day. But to what he said, keep calling, call often, don't stop. It's the biggest tool we have in our toolbox right now. Okay, yes,
I
ma'am.
just want to read this first one I got this morning. Reject cuts to Medicare and Medicaid to fund billionaire tax giveaways updated April 2nd. Senate vote this week. So that's the information. So every day when I go to that app, and it's just you have your morning coffee. It takes 5-10 minutes.
Yeah.
Call them up. I mean, they say, hi, this is Helen from,
I think Mervan's office gets a call from me. It's never nothing bad. I just want to show that I'm calling, but I think every time I'm going to drive somewhere. But same thing with Senator Young as well. Senator Banks just ignores me, but I still call. But that's the reality, right? Call every chance you get. It's the biggest tool we have in our toolbox. Because what happens next is the proposed cuts from those 83,000 plus that come, proposed in August, we get affected by that, but they're not seeing the second and third effects after that when they come with another reduction of force to the VA. They want to get the staff down to about 450,000 people nationwide across all federal agencies. Now, on the veteran side of that conversation, when you leave the military, you've already had millions of dollars invested into your education to be the best at Intel or the best at whatever your role was, your MOS was in the military, right? And you take that with you to do blue service work in a federal agency, State Department, VA, CIA, DIA, whatever it may be. When you get rid of those individuals, or worse off, you fire them during their probationary period, what do you think they're gonna do? They're gonna take that information. They were willing to be underpaid and work for the US, now they're just gonna go private sector. And private sector, we already know, can be bought out. It's always the highest bidder. So then what do? You lost them, and now they're a potential liability that can go somewhere else and work against the government. Not saying that a veteran would actually work against the government, but you don't know what your projects are gonna work on at the end run, or how it's gonna be used against us. So why wouldn't you wanna retain that institutional knowledge? You've put 20 years in, let the guy work for the US and wants to still do public service. That's always been my issue, is don't get rid of the people who willingly wanna work at a pay cut and dedicate themselves to other people, to make other Americans have a better life here. I keep hearing this misinformation where the government or federal agencies get a tax cut for this DEI thing, and I'm thinking, government agencies don't pay taxes, this doesn't make sense. But it shows the level of misinformation. Someone is willing to believe that crap because they haven't had the proper education in it. So we have to combat that with the right information. Instead of just trying to own the right and shut everyone down and, try not to cuss here, but put them down and put them in their place, we gotta find a better way to actually put the right information in front of them so it's receptive. Because that's the only way we get out of it, is making sure these people actually have the right information. Right now, they're feeling the pain. It's hard not to, right? Everyone's feeling it, good or bad, right or left. They're all gonna feel the pain with these tariffs. So now they're listening. Now, oh crap, who did I vote for? That's what they're thinking. This is when you wanna put that proper information in front of them. This is when you wanna back it, anything you say, back it up with a link, okay? At AFSI, we don't get into political stuff, but anything that we put out there, we always back it up with a link. This is where the study was. This is where this was. I don't need you saying I made anything up. Go read for yourself. If you don't know how to read, that's your own problem. But I'm gonna give you the information. It's up to you to make the decision on what you're gonna do with it. That's how we fight it on our end. Again, with these cuts, we're also looking at the VA with those 83,000. We're looking at not only just a decrease in service, decrease in benefits, decrease in accessibility, we're looking at a very, very, very large decrease in the outlier services, your suicide prevention. We saw that they got rid of the suicide prevention counselors. AFC hired a bunch of them. They came and worked with us. Mostly because they were already certified to do the job, so might as well keep doing it, but just do it under our umbrella. And it's been great, so we can at least reach out to service members that way. We got a lot of cease and desists from it. I won't say from who, but they can't do anything legally. You fire them, they're mine, right? That's how we see it. Is no, if they're doing great work, let's keep them working. Let them keep doing God's work and keep these people alive. Because sometimes you just need that conversation to show you there's still light at the end of the tunnel here. Okay? So, it's that for me. The other one's doing the work. But thank you guys for recognizing it, because it was a hell of a panic when we saw that. If everything they do tells a certain narrative, and I always think of it as a narrative for that week. And when you're gonna start that process with cutting suicide prevention counselors, my God, you really don't care about the American people, much less the people who served and died for the American people. How could you do that? I know I lean, for those who don't know, I'm pretty far left here. If it doesn't show already. Hey man, I try not to, but you guys are enticing me here. It's hard not to, but when you see everyone getting hurt on both sides, it's really hard to paint that picture of there even being sides, because when I was in uniform, and we all know this, nobody talks about politics in uniform. It's really frowned upon, no one really cares. We make the most brash jokes. I'm Hispanic, so we always had like funny Mexican jokes and taco jokes, and I thought they were funny. Didn't hurt my feelings, I didn't think anything of it, but these are my brothers and sisters I was serving with. So just like you would treat any brother or sister making a snide comment, you get the same effect. And I kept thinking, there's no way that these people ever cared what my politics were. And I went as far as to calling a bunch of them, hey, did you know I'm some lily liberal? Did you even care? He's like, oh yeah, you're from up north, I just figured. It never came up, 10 years of serving, never came up, didn't matter. But it's such a pain point now, to where people say, well, just take care of the guys who voted for him. Well, for one, how would you know that? But two, why is that an issue? Didn't these people fight for the right to vote however you wanted? Fight for your liberties?
We took an oath to the Constitution.
We took an oath to the Constitution, not some jackass. Sorry. Listen, I'm trying, all right? But it's the truth. We took an oath to the Constitution.
He doesn't know what the Constitution.
I was just gonna say, he probably never read the Constitution. And instead of bashing him all day, all I can do is figure out how I can better help the people he's kicking to the curb. That's the best angle I can do. And again, a lot of this leans on the VA side of what's coming there, because for a lot of the older veterans, I'm not sure if you guys are aware of the congressional office budget that came out, I think it was late December, that they were gonna cut 30% of your retirement benefits, your compensation, once you hit the full Social Security retirement age. That's 30%. So you were already guaranteed an amount, but as of December, we're gonna cut 30% off. And now they're looking at cutting another 25 of that. And then you have tariffs on everything. So how exactly are they supposed to live? And these are our veterans and their families.
Is that on existing benefits?
The
New ones coming up?
the existing. Once you are of age to receive those benefits, 30% is going to be gone. And anything pending in the pipeline now also gets affected. So pretty much all across the board.
If you're total and permanent
Mhm.
disabled, you're gonna get a 30% cut.
Yes.
And when does that take place?
They taught me how to use mortars.
I'm great with a rifle.
When does that take place?
That's already, the 30% is already in effect.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, because of all the backlash now, I know they're pushing a lot of it through pushing it up through the courts, but it's going to take effect because it happened before. It wasn't a Trump thing. It's something that kind of got spun through with the Republicans pushed it through. It ended up being something that made its way through, and now they're trying to fight back against it. But when you have Democratic leaders in Washington, their backs are kind of against the wall right now. So they're trying to increase on that. And now that whole thing was a Project 2025 detail that everyone said Trump doesn't know anything about. It was in there, it was detailed. We had an indivisible event where this came up and I spoke there, and I literally spoke on it. This was last fall, and I thought, surely they won't do that. You won't do that to veterans, and they did, and it's happening. And it's drastically frustrating that they're trying to shave off another 25% on top of the 30. I'm hoping that won't make it through, but that's what they're angling for now, and they have the numbers in their favor. So, what does that mean for us? Yes?
That's what I was thinking of. So, contribution was the number, what's it, 3% or whatever, less.
Mhm.
And then they say, well, the VA isn't working, so we're gonna privatize it. So you're still gonna stay at less, but, you're gonna have to pay something out if it's privatized, or how's that work?
So what they'll do is they'll most likely gonna find a way to say, oh, well, since it's privatized, we're gonna take away the part that you need, or that essentially say, well, what we're covering, we're gonna take out of your compensation. Kind of like a payback system. So if you're at 53% less, right, you're getting, you're getting the remainder of that comp if you're 100%, 100% PNT or permanent in total. That remainder is gonna be minus whatever it costs for you to get your services. So they're just taking it out of your pot still. It's ugly. It's very ugly.
So the
Yes.
money's really coming off the top. You're not looking at it as a direct individual view percentage that you're not going to receive from what you would normally get monthly
Mhm.
is maybe not so significant, but when you look at the whole of the service that it offers for everyone
Mhm.
and what money there is to dilly out, that's where the major cut is.
The 30% comes off of your personal number.
Okay, so, and I wanna make a point too, real quick,
Yeah.
while I have your attention.
Sure.
Sorry.
Don't yell at me.
I feel like I am. You said 450,000 is what they wanna get down to?
I didn't hear the first word.
You said they wanna get down to 450,000 nationwide?
They would like to.
How many employees are there at just Jesse Brown?
Oh, Lord. Jesse Brown has a lot.
Just to make a point.
I don't know the exact number, but just at Jesse Brown, all services included, I mean, we're even talking about janitorial services, security guards, you're looking at, I would say, close to 5,000. And that's just because not everyone is in the building at once. Again, we have those home office, home visits. We also have people who work, they belong to Jesse Brown, but they're contracted out to the C-Box as well to be within the community for the older service members or veterans that can't get to the VA. There's a lot.
That's just one
That's
city.
just one. Now, Illinois has a lot of C-Box and VAs. That's just one. So putting it in context, it's a lot of people that are gonna be hurt. If you've been to Jesse Brown, you've seen Jesse Brown, big place. If that's empty, you've seen how many people are waiting to get service. Can you imagine if you cut down a ton of that staff?
And how far you already have to travel to get
Oh,
that
there's
done.
people who drive
Now,
from Springfield to go to Jesse Brown.
They cut down all that, there's not gonna be local anything.
You know the nearest C-Box to Springfield, Illinois is 2 hours away? It used to be closer, I don't know why they moved it, but not everyone can drive 2 hours. Not everyone has family support that can do that. If you're in a wheelchair, that's hard to get those resources.
And you had said something about being able to go to other places to get stuff. For example, dental. You cannot, as a veteran, you cannot go to just any dentist
No,
and get
no,
covered.
yeah,
You
it's a
have to
nightmare.
go to Jesse Brown.
You gotta go to Sprint,
You
yeah.
can't even go over here to Crown Point.
I'm not a fan of that either.
So, even though they say you can, that's
Mhm.
never actually changed.
It's never changed for the dental side. What they've done is in certain scenarios, special cases, they'll let you go out.
Special cases.
And now, again with Project 2025, special cases aren't gonna matter.
No.
So
Just making sure it's clear.
I'm gonna jump to that actually because that's important here. The changes in the healthcare coverage, right? She mentioned Jesse Brown as an example, 5,000 plus, just a give or take number of how many people are there currently on a daily basis, in person in the facility. There's more people that belong to Jesse Brown, but they may work in the community of the C-Box as well as the home visitors and stuff. So there's a lot more than that. Now, if you reduce the staff there, and if you've ever gone to Jesse Brown, you know there's always a ton of veterans waiting for service. If they're already understaffed and you cut the staff even further, are you even providing any good to the community? Are you doing anything for the service members? Now, if you cut in staff, that's not just Jesse Brown that's getting cut. It's the CBOCs, the community outreach centers that work as a satellite center for the VA. Those are for sure gonna be gone. Crown Point CBOC, gone. I worked there for a long time. That would just be an empty shell, because that's all part, that CBOC belongs to Jesse Brown, now that we speak on it. The impact is really, you called it out, it's shifting towards the private sector. Because they want those services, those private sector services, to be able to get the bulk of that government money. And what happens when we see that? They end up becoming government contractors. And what happens when you have that monopoly on government contractors? You become the next Lockheed Martin and Booz Allen Hamilton, where you have 93% of government contracts as your business. Now, if you're good at what you do and you're helping the people, I don't care. But if you're doing it on the backs of people, I have a problem with that. Privatizing these services wouldn't be for your best interest. Right now what's happening, there's two programs in the National Capital Region. Well, they're nationwide, but two that I've seen be affected drastically. Operation Warfighter, which is a program I helped stand up a few years ago, and Education and Employment Initiative. Both of those programs, a way to retain that institutional knowledge, make sure you're not homeless, you still have a sense of dignity, and you have a proper paycheck, and you've got a place to go to work. And they're using all of your life experience in the military, they're carrying it over. You haven't learned any bad habits, you don't have to worry about vetting you, your background, or anything. They know what they're getting. So we provide those internships in the federal agency as a means of them showing you the ropes, getting you that experience. If you decide you don't want to work federal, you go ahead and take that experience on your resume and go elsewhere, because it's also experience you're not going to really get easily. So it works on both ends. That's being viewed as a DEI accessory.
Oh my
I
God.
figured that.
Education and Employment Initiative. It's a program where we literally just partner with the VA, the Veteran Affairs staff on the college campuses, the counselors I should say, and we just coordinate, hey, let's get his BAH going, or her BAH going, let's get them going into school. Here's their deadline when they separate, when can they start school? We make sure it's a smooth process. If we have to get creative, we'll get creative. If they just want employment, they don't want to do school, that's great. Okay, let's find you a place to land, so when you separate, you know where you're heading to on Monday, okay? Being viewed as a DEI program. So it's hard to to spin that logic to make sense and say it's DEI, but that's how it's being treated. Now, they haven't cut it because it belongs to DHA. DHA is part of DOD. However, that's how it's being viewed, which makes everyone think, okay, it's a matter of time before they start throwing punches their way, right? And that reclassification would shutter that. So reclassifying those federal positions would say, okay, we can no longer take these federal internships. These service members now have to get at the back of the line. For those who aren't aware, with USA Jobs, you're not just competing with people in the United States, you're competing with the entire world, because people relocate to work with the federal government if they pass the background check. So it's a long process. This gives them access within 3 months to an internship. If they do well in that internship, they may potentially get hired there in 3 more months, or whenever they separate, right? It's a guaranteed way to make sure you're landing on your feet and your family has food in their mouths, okay? Pull the rug out from underneath them. Now they're getting out of the military with an injury that they have less benefits for, and they also don't know how to get help from the VA to do it, because the VA now has less staff. So when they get out of the military, they're pretty much on the curb by themselves with really no plan of recourse, and they're told to get P&T, but let's shave off 30% of that bad boy. On top of that, the services you would normally get going to the VA, the benefits you would normally get are going to be decreased as well. So what are we really looking at? There's nothing on the table after that. You're pretty much on your own. So being treated the exact same way. That's the frustration. I know I've gone on a lot of tangents. I love that you guys are throwing questions at me. Yes, Judy?
This is a little different, but I know our congressman helped pass the CATS Act.
Who was that?
CATS Act?
Yes.
With Agent Orange and
Uh-huh.
Oranges, and I heard that there was talk about taking that away possibly. What's the scoop on that?
I was literally next.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So, no, I'm glad you said that, because they're looking at that, they're looking at other things with reversing the extensions on the PACT Act. I am a cancer survivor. I had a really weird cancer tumor. I had so I had breast cancer, and then the VA missed the one on my spine. I had to go to Northwestern to find that bad boy. I had them both at the same time, so 2 primary cancer tumors. I got lucky. I had to retrace all of my military experience and my deployment and location to prove that this can potentially be caused by the burn pits and what we were doing in northern Iraq there. Fast forward a year and a half later, the PACT Act comes. And I couldn't help but cry my eyes out because it took me so much time just to find, I had to get sworn statements from old commanders that have been retired for a decade to just prove where I was and what I did. And it was insane just so the VA would cover it. And it's not that the VA didn't want to, they have their own loopholes they have to jump through. The PACT Act comes through, makes it easy, simple, all the way back to Agent Orange. That was phenomenal. And I couldn't have been prouder of Mervan to see him running up and down. Listen, we got a skinny congressman and that boy was moving. He was sweating, it was hot, he was moving, he was doing his job. But he put up the fight. I remember, I think it was John Stewart was doing like a rally on the lawn. It was like, he had a bunch of veterans pissed off. But it worked. And I remember sitting there like, that's my congressman. This is what you fight for, and this is how you do it. It doesn't feel like much in the beginning because you're not throwing punches, you're not swinging a bat, but there's other ways of fighting. He was putting in the work that day. I couldn't be prouder. So yes, it definitely leans into that. Because of the PACT Act, we have service members that get the treatment that they needed. And it just started recently. Now they're trying to get rid of it for the same reasons. Yes?
So what about funding for what you do?
Funding for what I do? So the cool thing with us is normally you'd wait till you have a 501c3 approval from the IRS. Because of everything going on, they pretty much said it's gonna be a while. I said, that's fine, we're not gonna wait for you. So we found a bunch of private donors who said, hey, we believe in what you're doing. A lot of these guys are veterans who just made a bunch of money and are willing to back us up. Mark Cuban's looking at jumping on board as well. Yeah, it's pretty awesome. So we're really excited, but it was a lot of just luck and saying, hey, we know that they have to wait, but we're not gonna. We're gonna go. And it started off with a shoestring budget with myself and Sean Migrants, who's the CTO, who built out the Warrior Compass program. Literally just a shoestring budget saying, hey, how can we get all of this on the cheap? But we found out that if you just apply yourself and you have the right conversations with people, they'll step up. A lot of them don't want to be recognized because they don't want the eyeballs, the negative attention at the moment. And that's understandable, but it gives us what we need to keep moving. And for us, we're happy because we have enough to get through past that approval process and still carry on. So I couldn't be happier. I love the work that I'm doing with AFC. Work with veterans, work with military families. There's so many organizations out there that have so much pool that are just really working hard. Military Families is another one, or I'm sorry, Blue Star Families is another one. And they are doing great work, focusing more on more of the family element, the spouses and the children, to make sure that they aren't affected while the service members are taken care of on the federal side as well. So there's a lot out there. My organization is just a drop in the bucket trying to make a difference. So, yes.
What do you need from us?
I need you guys to call your congressman, call your senators. Our organization, we're small, we're new. I wish that I could say, hey, I've got the millions and billions of dollars to just flip the switch. But it doesn't mean jack squat if I don't have the voice of the people saying the same thing. Because it's you guys that can turn the tide. We're trying to keep up and plug a hole here that's hurting the veterans. But unless everyone contacts their representatives, unless everyone steps up, shows out, and does what they have to do, gets loud, makes these guys very uncomfortable, that's when we're gonna see a change. I'm tired of burying my friends. I'm sick and tired of it. That probationary, the first wave of probationary fires, those layoffs, we saw 11 suicides in the next week and a half after that. And the suicide notes said, hey, this is my last ditch effort to take care of my kid. But 11 in just one region alone. And then we start getting calls from other regions throughout the states. How do I do that? How do you fight that? So then you realize no one's gonna listen to just me unless I have an army of people behind me. If there's one thing that I know is if you're going to approach something like this, you can't do it by yourself. You can't. This is where you guys come in. Make your representatives uncomfortable. Make them feel it. Like he said, call them, whether they answer or not. Someone's got to count that number. Someone's got to tally it up. Email, call. If you're at their town hall, shout them down. If they're knuckleheads, shut them down. If they're good guys, just be good. But let's
Cutouts.
what's that?
Cardboard cutouts.
Cardboard cutouts. So to answer your question, what do I need? I need you guys. I need all of you. I need all of you here in Indiana, everyone in Illinois, the other 48 states. I need the territories. I need everyone speaking up on the same page about the same things. It's not just veterans. Let's be real. It's not just veterans. We got Dr. Oz who's running Medicaid. What the hell?
You got in today.
He got in? Okay, you see how fast it's going?
He got in. He's got all kinds of money in the advantage plans.
This is the problem. We are the ones that can make the difference here. It shouldn't be too much to ask that our kids at least have a decent life to be raised. It shouldn't be too much to ask that our families at least have the decency to say, you know what, I'm gonna go grocery shopping and not have to rethink how much gas I'm gonna put in the tank afterwards. It shouldn't be too much to ask that when we go to work and we come home, we realize, you know what, I can still provide for my family. It shouldn't be too much to ask that when you put your head down on the pillow at the end of your day, that you can have a sense of dignity and some pride about what you're gonna do the next day. You shouldn't have to figure out, how am I gonna swing it till Friday? I don't think that's too much to ask.
You gotta remember you got a president that thinks that veterans are losers and suckers.
Bingo. He thinks we're losers and suckers. Yes, ma'am.
How do you think that the Vietnam veterans are going to be affected with Agent Orange and the issues that they have? There's a couple of Vietnam vets sitting right here, and one that left.
I hate to say it, but you guys got the short end of the stick. We've seen it with Bernie, when we get our numbers together. We can really push through and drive home. But to answer your question, it's gonna get rocky. But if we get loud enough, if we show up, it will make a difference. If we make those calls, we make them uncomfortable, it will make a difference. I hope that answers your question. I wish I had something grandiose to say, but that's the truth.
And I wish we could
Sorry.
let Martin, no, that's okay, you were wonderful.